Cleveland's winter pressed down like a weight. The kind of cold that lingers in your bones, makes your breath hang in the air, and turns every wooden beam in an old house into a groaning mouth. Wind clawed at the windows like something desperate trying to get in. Kiara had been back in her father's duplex for 6 months since the stroke. He was still alive, tucked away in a memory care facility, but the man she knew was already gone. The house felt abandoned even with her in it, like it was waiting for him to return, or for someone else. The first sound came on a Tuesday night. She was curled on the couch with a blanket, binging another crime doc that blurred into the background, something about a missing family. She wasn't really paying attention. Her body was present, but her mind kept drifting, until it happened. A long, low, dragging sound. She paused the TV, sat up, heart thudding. Not a crash. It was slower, deliberate. A scrape, metal on concrete, from beneath her. The basement. Her eyes snapped to the hallway where the basement door sat closed, cloaked in shadows. She strained to hear again. Nothing. "It's the furnace," she whispered. But it didn't sound right. Still, she locked the door that night, both knob and deadbolt, then wedged a chair under the handle, something her dad used to do when he got paranoid. It helped. A little. The next night, it happened again. Later. Around 1:13 a.m., she'd nearly drifted off when she heard it again. Faint at first, then louder. Dragging. Pausing, then dragging again. Something or someone moving across the concrete. She didn't move for several seconds. Then slowly she got out of bed, slipped into the hallway and crouched near the floor vent, placed her phone next to it and hit record. No flashlight, just cold air and her shallow breathing. She didn't sleep, just lay under the covers, listening. Every creak made her flinch. By morning, her fingers shook as she played the audio. First silence, then dragging, slow, metallic, then breathing, not hers, heavy, wet, then whispers, not words, tones, male maybe, as if someone was just below whispering into the vent. She yanked the earbuds out, replayed it 3 more times. She called the police. 2 officers came. Tired looking. One was young, the other older, with eyes like empty glass. They swept the house, checked doors, windows, closets, then headed down to the basement. She waited upstairs, arms crossed tight, listening to their boots echo on the cement. They came back 10 minutes later. "Nothing," the older cop said. "Probably the furnace. Old houses make noise." She played the recording. He listened. His brow tightened, but his tone didn't. "Could be animals," he added. "You get raccoons?" She didn't answer, just stared. They gave her a card and left. No report, no follow-up. After they drove off, she unlocked the basement door herself. It smelled like rust, dust, and something wet. She didn't go down. Just shut the door, locked it again, and opened the hall closet. Inside was her dad's old trail camera. They used it back at the hunting cabin. Motion activated. Night vision. Silent. It still worked. She mounted it on the hallway wall, angled directly at the basement door. Then she packed a bag, left the lights on, and checked into a motel near the highway. She didn't sleep there either. Her phone buzzed at exactly 3:24 a.m. Motion detected. Hallway camera. She sat up fast, clicked the alert. The feed loaded. Grainy, grayscale. The hallway was still, empty. Then the basement door creaked open. A figure stepped out, tall, thin, movements stiff, its face covered by a white blank mask, smooth, no holes, no features, just void. It didn't hesitate, didn't flinch. It stood in the middle of the hall. still. Then its head tilted upward, right at the camera. Not surprised, not scared. As if it had known she was watching. Then slowly it turned around and stepped back into the basement, down the stairs, into the dark. Kiara didn't move for a long time. She just sat on the motel bed, phone in hand, replaying the footage again and again. Her stomach churned with something cold and hollow. Every time she watched it, the details felt sharper. The blank white mask, the mechanical stillness, the way it turned its head, calm, not startled, as if being caught on camera wasn't a mistake. It had wanted her to see. At 6 a.m., she packed her things, left the motel key on the nightstand, and drove home. The sky was still dark when she parked outside the duplex. For a moment, she sat behind the wheel, staring at her front door. The snow on the porch was untouched. No tracks, no sign anyone had come or gone. But that meant nothing. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The hallway was exactly how she left it, lamps still on, trail cam still mounted. She checked the memory card and transferred the new footage to her laptop. The clip was time-stamped. No camera glitches, no artifacts. It was real. She isolated a still frame of the figure, zoomed in. The mask was smooth, porcelain-like. No seams, no fasteners. It didn't look like something you bought at a party store. It looked custom, handmade. And that stillness, it unnerved her more than if the thing had been flailing or rushing. It was too composed, too aware. She uploaded the clip to a burner email and sent it to herself twice. Then she copied it onto a USB drive and dropped it into her winter boot, the one she never wore, just in case. Then she made coffee with shaking hands and stared at the basement door. The camera hadn't picked up any return movement, no second exit. The figure had gone back down and never came up, which meant it could still be down there. She sat on the stairs for a while, not moving, just listening. But the silence had turned cruel. It wasn't peaceful. It was waiting. By noon, she needed answers. She logged into a local crime forum, posted under an anonymous name, shared a blurred still of the masked figure, and asked, "Has anyone seen anything like this before?" In the Cleveland area. She hit submit and refreshed every few minutes. Nothing at first, then one comment, then 3, then 20. Most were jokes, creepypasta replies. Slender mask? Looks like my sleep paralysis demon. But a few made her stop cold. One user wrote, "This looks like the white hollow mask thing. I saw this face once in my cousin's trail cam in Akron. Basement cam, 2021. Cops never found anything. He moved 2 weeks later. Said he kept hearing someone breathing behind the walls." Another posted a grainy photo. A hallway, a figure at the end, same mask. Another added, "I had something like this too. Caught on nanny cam. Basement door opened by itself. Saw a masked figure just watching my baby. Deleted the clip out of fear, but I never forgot the mask. That same tilt. Dozens more piled on. All different towns, all different years, but the same mask, the same silence. Basements." She sat back in her chair, heart racing. This wasn't just her house. She reached out to one of the users who had shared a video, someone with a username ending in _Ohio78. She asked for more details. They replied with only one line. "If you see it once, that means it's already chosen your house." She closed the laptop. The trail cam hadn't gone off again. No movement, no alerts. But she couldn't trust that. The camera caught things in view. It didn't see through floors or walls or inside closets. That night, she stayed awake with her phone in hand and a flashlight in her lap. At 2:11 a.m., she heard it again. The dragging, but not from the basement, from inside the house. She froze. It was coming from the back room, her father's old office, a space she'd locked and rarely entered. Books, paperwork, hunting gear. She used it for storage now. The noise was low, steady. Scrape. Pause. Scrape again. She didn't call the police. Instead, she unlocked her phone and opened the live feed from the trail cam. Nothing in the hallway, which meant, whatever it was already upstairs. She rose from the couch as slowly as she could, careful not to let the floor creak. Her heart was hammering in her ears. The sound stopped. Dead silence. Then came a new noise. Click. A doorknob turning. The office door. She grabbed her keys and ran. Out the front door. Didn't stop until she was in her car with the engine roaring. She peeled out of the driveway and didn't look back. Not until she was in a crowded gas station 10 miles away, sitting in the restroom with the lights on and the door locked. Her phone buzzed in her hand. Motion detected. She opened the feed and watched the figure move out of her father's office and slowly turn toward the camera again. Same mask, same stillness. This time it raised one hand and waved. The wave. That part haunted her more than the mask. The masked figure hadn't just moved. It acknowledged the camera. A gesture, casual, even polite, like it knew she was watching and didn't care. That was no sleepwalker, no squatter. It had awareness, intent. Kiara spent the rest of the night in her car in a supermarket parking lot, with the doors locked, engine running. Snow flurries drifted across the windshield as she stared at the phone screen, replaying the clip in a daze. Same mask, same body language. That wave burned into her brain. Just after sunrise, she drove to her brother Nate's place in Lakewood. She hadn't spoken to him much since their dad's decline, but she needed somewhere safe, somewhere not layered in creaking wood and old secrets. Nate answered the door, shirtless, bleary-eyed, holding a toddler with dried applesauce on her onesie. "Kiara?" He blinked. "You look like hell. I need to stay here for a couple nights. Just don't ask anything yet." He hesitated but nodded. "Yeah, of course." She didn't sleep, not really. But for the first time in days, she lay somewhere that didn't creak beneath her. No dragging, no masked figure. Just her niece's soft giggles and the sound of cartoons playing in another room. The next morning, she woke with a decision. She was going to check the basement. Not a peek, not a recording. She needed to go down there herself. Whatever was in that house, it was choosing when to show itself. She needed to take back control. Before leaving Nate's place, she stopped at a hardware store, bought a heavy-duty flashlight, a crowbar, and pepper spray. The cashier gave her a weird look. She didn't explain. By the time she pulled into her driveway, it was early afternoon. The sky was gray, the kind that made everything feel like it was already 7 p.m. She stood at the base of her porch for a full minute, staring at the front door before unlocking it. Inside, the house felt colder. Not temperature exactly, just energy, like it knew she was back. She moved straight to the hallway and unplugged the trail cam. It had captured nothing new. That didn't comfort her. She walked to the basement door, unbolted it, opened it slowly. The air smelled damp, metallic, like wet pennies and old stone. She clicked on her flashlight. The beam cut through the dust, landing on the concrete steps below. Her boots echoed as she descended. Nothing moved, no sound, just her own breath. The basement hadn't changed since she was a kid. Exposed pipes, a sagging workbench, boxes of old hunting gear, holiday lights, and water-stained photo albums. The concrete floor was bare, but the far corner, that's where the smell was strongest. She stepped toward it slowly. Her flashlight passed over something strange, faint lines in the dust like old drag marks, long ones. Something heavy had been moved. Recently, she knelt, brushing the floor with her gloved hand. There was a section of concrete that looked newer, slightly off color, like it had been patched or poured more recently than the rest of the floor. Her stomach turned. She ran back upstairs, grabbed the crowbar, and returned. It took 20 minutes of prying and hammering, but eventually the patch gave way. She pulled back a slab the size of a manhole cover and shined the light inside. There was a space beneath the floor, a hollow cavity lined in brick, maybe 3 feet deep. Inside it, a stack of VHS tapes, dozens, and something else, a mask, not the same as the one in the video. This one was cracked, scorched in places, burned around the edges, but the shape, identical, blank, no holes, smooth white void. She didn't touch it. She reached for the tapes instead. Each one was labeled by year. The earliest, 1996. The latest, 2020. Her dad had moved into this house in 1995. She took the newest tape and slid it into an old VCR in the upstairs den. It whirred to life with a faint buzzing hum. The screen crackled, then went black. No intro, no sound, just grainy footage of a basement. Not hers, a different one, smaller. The camera angle was static, like security footage. Nothing happened for a while. Then something entered the frame. A person, bound, gagged. They were crawling on hands and knees, dragging themselves forward. Kiara's breath hitched. Seconds later, the masked figure appeared behind them. Slowly, quietly. No music, no jump cuts, just raw footage of something real, something evil. She hit stop. She couldn't watch the rest. Not yet. She rewound the tape, put it back in its sleeve, and locked it in the glove compartment of her car. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat on her living room couch with the crowbar in her lap and her back to the wall. The basement door stayed shut, but in her mind, she kept hearing the whir of the VCR and that single frame of the mask staring out from the dark, waiting for the next tape, and wondering how many more were buried in concrete. The tapes sat in her passenger seat like a silent passenger. Kiara didn't know how many she'd taken. 10, maybe 12. She couldn't bring herself to count them all. They felt cursed, touched by something human but not right. Each tape labeled with a year and a strip of duct tape, nothing else. Back at Nate's place, she parked 2 blocks away. She didn't want to be seen unloading them. She wrapped the stack in a towel and tucked them under her coat before hurrying up the sidewalk. He wasn't home. A note on the table said he'd taken his daughter to the park. Good. She needed time. She locked herself in the guest room and pulled out the old VCR from the den, hooked it up to Nate's small TV, sat cross-legged on the floor, and stared at the stack. The first tape she chose was labeled 1999. It opened in static. Then, like the others, a still basement. But this one was familiar. Her basement, years ago. A child sat on the concrete floor playing with plastic dinosaurs. She recognized the messy hair, the oversized hoodie. It was her, 7 or 8 years old. Her voice echoed faintly, laughing to herself. The camera angle was from a high corner, not handheld, surveillance. Then the light shifted. A shadow moved into frame, not fully seen, just a glimpse, a leg, a sleeve. Kiara on the tape looked up and smiled. "Daddy." Then the screen cut to black. Kiara hit pause, her mouth dry. She hadn't remembered this. Not exactly, but she recalled playing in the basement a lot as a kid. Her dad would go down there for hours. Quiet time, he called it. Sometimes he'd bring juice boxes, toys. Sometimes he locked the door behind him. She ejected the tape and grabbed another. 2007. Different footage, another basement. Dimmer, a mattress on the floor. Someone sitting against the wall, arms bound, face in shadow. The masked figure walked slowly into frame. No rush, just control. Kiara stopped the tape before anything else played. She felt nauseous. Whatever her father had done, whatever this was, it had gone on for decades. She remembered how the neighbors said he was quiet but nice. No one asked questions. He worked nights, kept to himself. It all made sense now. She had grown up in a house where something monstrous had lived below, and she hadn't known. Or maybe she had. A memory surfaced. She was 11. Her dad came upstairs one night covered in sweat, shirt untucked, face pale. Told her to stay in her room. Said a pipe had burst. But later she crept down anyway. There was no water, no pipe, just a smell, rust and rot, and a white glove left on the steps. She'd buried that memory. Until now, Kiara opened a local missing persons database, cross-referenced tape years with disappearances. It didn't take long. 1996. A teenage girl vanished 3 blocks over. Last seen walking home. 2001. A door-to-door surveyor never came back. 2008. A woman with schizophrenia disappeared from a nearby shelter. No leads, all within 10 miles of her father's home, all during years matching tapes. She felt the walls closing in. The truth wasn't just emerging, it was screaming. The trail cam at her house had stayed quiet the last 2 nights. No new motion. But she knew better. The figure wasn't gone. It was patient. She'd disturbed something, and it was watching again. That night, Nate came home and asked why she looked pale. She lied, said she had a cold. But before bed, she did something she never expected. She called the facility where her dad lived. A nurse answered. "I need to ask something," Kiara said quietly. "Has my father said anything strange?" A pause. Then the nurse replied, "Not much. He doesn't talk often, but the other day he looked at me and asked if I'd locked the basement door." Kiara's throat went dry. "What did you say?" "I told him the building doesn't have a basement. He just smiled and said, 'That's what they always think.'" Then he went quiet. Kiara hung up. She sat in the dark, heart pounding. The man who raised her, who taught her to ride a bike, who made grilled cheese when she was sick, had also filmed people in pain. He kept masks, poured concrete over secrets. And the worst part? He hadn't done it once. He'd done it for years, quietly, methodically. And now someone else had picked up where he left off. The tapes weren't memories, they were blueprints. And the masked figure wasn't done. Kiara didn't go back to the house for 3 days. She told Nate she was thinking of selling it, said being there was bad for her nerves. He didn't press, just nodded and offered the guest room for as long as she needed. He didn't ask about the VCR or why she was always locking the closet where the tapes were hidden under a blanket. On the 4th day, she drove back. The sky was flat gray, clouds sagging low like they were holding something in. Snow had fallen overnight, layering the porch in a thin, icy crust. Her boots crunched over it as she approached the front door. No footprints, no tire tracks. The house looked abandoned. Inside, everything was exactly as she'd left it. Lights off, thermostat low, trail cam unplugged. The silence wasn't peaceful. It felt compressed, like the air itself was pressing inward. She walked from room to room. No signs of intrusion, no mess, no objects out of place. That meant nothing. This house didn't show its teeth in daylight. She sat on the edge of the couch and opened her laptop. Her inbox held 2 new replies from anonymous users on the forum she'd posted to earlier, both responding to her still frame of the masked figure. The first message said, "You shouldn't go alone. You think you're watching it, but it's watching you. It learns from attention." The second chilled her deeper. There are old rumors about the Hollow, not a person, a pattern, a role that chooses a house, usually one that's already soaked in grief. Pain attracts it. Kiara reread the last sentence. A house soaked in grief. Her mother died in that house when Kiara was 6. A brain aneurysm. Her father had found her collapsed in the laundry room. At least, that's what the police report said. But now, Kiara wondered what else had happened in that house. Before the cameras, before the masks. She remembered hearing crying through the vents sometimes, long after her mother was gone. That night, she plugged the trail cam back in and set it to full sensitivity. Every 5 seconds, it scanned for motion. The infrared flickered softly in the hall. She tried to sleep. 2:16 a.m. Motion detected. Hallway camera. She sat upright in bed. Her skin went cold. She grabbed her phone, opened the feed. Empty hallway. Basement door. Closed. She waited. Then she heard it, not through the phone, but from behind her wall. Scratch. Pause. Scratch. Scratch. She turned her head slowly. It was coming from inside the wall, between the studs, just above the baseboard. Deliberate. Slow. Too heavy to be mice. Too rhythmic to be pipes. She grabbed her flashlight and crept toward it. Her heart thudded against her ribs. She knelt, pressed her ear to the wall. Silence. Then, breathing. Close, shallow, just beyond the plaster. Something was on the other side, not moving, just listening back. She stood and backed away. Then the hallway light dimmed, just for a second. A flicker, then back. She checked the breaker. All normal, no reason for that surge, no visible reason. The next morning, she took a utility knife and carved open that section of wall. Not recklessly, slowly, measured cuts. The drywall crumbled in chunks, releasing a puff of insulation. She pulled it aside with gloved hands. Behind it, wedged between 2 studs, a sealed plastic bag. She slid it out. Inside, a rusted hunting knife, a coiled rope, a roll of duct tape dried and yellowing with age, all stained, all old. She dropped it on the floor like it had burned her. The wall had hidden something, tools, instruments, from her father's time or after. She didn't call the police. She already knew what they'd say. No forced entry, no suspect, no visible threat. But there was a threat, and it was patient. She stayed awake that night, sitting cross-legged in the dark living room, a crowbar beside her and the flashlight balanced on her knee. She left all the lights off, except for one. A single lamp aimed at the basement door. She wanted to provoke it. 2:40 a.m. The trail cam pinged. Live motion. She opened it. The hallway flickered into view. The basement door was open. The masked figure stood halfway up the stairs, not walking, not emerging, just there, still, like it had risen straight out of the dark. It didn't move toward the camera. Instead, it raised one arm, slowly, and extended something just barely into frame. A VHS tape, labeled in red marker, 2023. This year. Then it stepped back, not turning, not rushing. It retreated into the shadows, tape still in hand, vanishing into the black below. The feed went still. She didn't sleep. She sat up all night, facing the basement door. By dawn, the camera showed the door still open. She rose, heart pounding, and stepped toward the stairs. At the top step, resting perfectly centered, was the tape. It hadn't been thrown or dropped. It had been placed there. She didn't touch the tape at first. Kiara stood at the top of the basement stairs for what felt like an hour, staring down at it. The black plastic case, the red marker. 2023. It wasn't covered in dust. No signs of age. It was new. Someone had recorded it recently. Or something. The house was silent, still. The trail cam showed nothing else. No return, no movement. Just a hallway with an open door and a tape left like a message. She finally picked it up, holding it with the edge of her sweatshirt like it might bite. It was cold. She locked every door and window, drew the curtains, and pulled the old VCR from Nate's place out of her bag. Set it on the coffee table, plugged it in, slid the tape in. It clicked. Word. Then the screen went black. No logo, no static, just silence. Then a frame. Basement stairs, her stairs. Same angle as her trail cam, but slightly lower, like it had been placed on the floor. There was no timestamp, no camera shake, just stillness. The basement door was already open in the footage. She could see her legs in the frame, her own legs, from earlier that night before she had gone to bed. She was walking past the door, unaware. Frozen, Kiara leaned closer. The footage didn't jump ahead. It crawled. Minute by minute, nothing moved. No edits, no cuts. Then, at 2:40 a.m., a shift. The bottom of the stairs darkened slightly. Something stepped into view. The masked figure. Except this time, it didn't wave, didn't walk. It crawled. Silent, unnatural movement, hands and feet working together like an insect. It crawled up 4 steps and paused, head tilted upward. It was watching her walk by. Kiara's legs exited the frame. She never saw it. Then, slowly, the figure reached into a pocket and pulled something out, a small plastic case. The tape. It held it for several seconds, then placed it gently at the top step and crawled backward, disappearing into shadow again. The screen went black. No credits, no end. The tape ejected on its own. Kiara didn't move, didn't speak. She sat staring at the black TV screen, heart pounding against her ribs like it was trying to get out. This wasn't surveillance. This was a message. She thought about the forum comment. It learns from attention. She'd watched the tapes, opened the walls, dug up secrets. Now it was watching her, and it was escalating. The next day, she drove 2 hours south to visit someone she hadn't seen since college. Madison Tate, a criminology professor who now worked with a regional cold case unit. They met in a cafe near Dayton. Madison looked older but sharp-eyed, still wore those tiny reading glasses that always slid down her nose. "You look like hell," she said gently after Kiara sat down. "Thanks. It's been a week." They talked. Kiara didn't mention everything. Just enough. The basement, the tapes, the mask, a few cases she believed were linked. Madison listened carefully, then said, "You know what this sounds like, right?" Kiara shook her head. "A behavioral echo, someone replicating crimes, not because they were taught, but because they were drawn to them. Sometimes it's biological, sometimes it's environmental. A house can hold more than just walls." Kiara felt her stomach knot. "What do you mean, environmental?" "There's a theory," Madison said, lowering her voice, "that places where trauma repeats itself, same acts, same methods, those places develop something like a memory. Not supernatural, just deeply encoded. Certain people walk into them and it activates something dormant. The behavior finds a host." Kiara swallowed hard. "And if the original person is still alive? Then the behavior can splinter. Repeat in parallel, like it's not tied to the person, it's tied to the pattern." That night, Kiara stayed in a motel halfway back to Cleveland. She didn't bring the tape inside, but she couldn't sleep. At 3:13 a.m., her phone buzzed. Motion detected, hallway camera. She hadn't remembered to unplug it. Heart racing, she opened the app. The feed stuttered, glitched, then cleared. The basement door was open. Again. This time, the figure didn't appear on the stairs. It stood in the hallway, directly in front of the camera. Closer than ever. The mask filled most of the frame. Still, breathless. Then, slowly, it tilted its head sideways like a dog listening, and reached forward, covered the lens. The screen went black. Connection lost. Kiara dropped the phone. Her motel room was silent. Too silent. She turned on the lights. Every light. And for the first time since it all started, she realized something terrifying. It wasn't just that the mask had come back. It was that it knew she had left. It knew she was watching. And it had followed her. Kiara didn't go home. She drove back to Nate's house the next morning, eyes heavy, body running on fumes. She didn't say much when she arrived, just that something had happened at the motel. He didn't pry, just gave her the spare key, made coffee, and left her alone. She hadn't told him everything. She couldn't. The truth sounded like fiction, like madness. But she had to tell someone. That evening, she sat in the backyard with her laptop and opened a secure email thread to Madison. She typed, "Last night it appeared outside the basement, but not in my house. It followed me to a motel. It covered the camera. It knew. This isn't just a copycat. It's like it's watching the watcher. And it's getting closer." She hit send and waited. An hour later, Madison replied, "You need to treat this like a crime scene. Document everything. Assume you are being watched, because if it is mimicking your awareness, you might be accelerating it just by noticing. Some behaviors feed off recognition." Kiara closed the laptop and stared out at the quiet street. It was almost dark. She hadn't checked the tapes in 2 days. Part of her didn't want to, but she also knew ignoring it wouldn't stop it. The trail cam still had power. Her house sat dormant, untouched, on the surface. She logged into the remote feed. Nothing. Basement door shut. Lights steady. For now. That night she dreamed of the mask, not on a figure, not in motion, just the mask itself, hanging in midair, floating over her childhood bed, breathing without a body, watching her as a child and adult at the same time. She woke covered in sweat. The next morning she made a decision. She would return to the house, but not alone. She called Madison. "I need you to see it," Kiara said. "Not just the tapes, the place, the feeling." Madison hesitated, then said, I'll drive up tonight. Be there by 8. The day moved slowly. She went through old boxes in the garage, hoping to find anything. Photos, journals, receipts that might point to her father's behavior. But everything was bland, sterile, like he'd scrubbed his life of context. Just as the sun dipped behind the tree line, Madison's car pulled into the driveway. Kiara greeted her at the door. "You ready for this?" she asked. "No," Madison said, "but I'm here." They started with the living room. Kiara showed her the 2023 tape, the crawling, the placement, the exact time, then the wall, the hidden bag, the knife, the rope. Madison took slow, careful notes. Her hands didn't shake, but her lips pressed into a thin, pale line. When they reached the basement door, Kiara paused. "I haven't gone down since I was a kid," she said. Madison looked at her. "Then we go together." They descended slowly. The light flickered once, then held. The basement was cleaner than it had any right to be. The concrete floor was dry. The air smelled faintly of bleach and thyme. There were no shelves, no boxes, just smooth walls and silence. But in the far left corner near the foundation, Kiara noticed something strange. A seam. She stepped closer. It wasn't a wall. It was paneling, newer than the rest, less worn. She pressed on it, hollow. Without speaking, Madison reached for the crowbar and handed it over. Kiara wedged it into the edge and pried. The panel gave way with a groan of old nails. Behind it, a shallow recess, 3 feet deep, 5 feet wide. A chair, just a single wooden chair, bolted to the floor, chains on both armrests, old bloodstains on the legs, and above it, bolted into the foundation, a camera mount. Empty now, but the screws were recent. Kiara staggered back. Madison said nothing, just raised her phone and took photos. Then something shifted behind them. A sound, not from the camera, not from a device. From the stairs, a slow, deliberate creak. Kiara turned. There, standing halfway down the steps, was the masked figure. Not on video, not crawling. Real. Right there, in the flesh. Madison dropped her phone. The figure didn't move, didn't flinch, just watched. Its head tilted slightly, just like on the tape. Then, with a slow precision, it raised one finger and pointed, downward, toward the chair. Kiara felt her knees buckle. She backed against the wall, heart slamming in her chest. Madison grabbed the crowbar. "Move," she whispered. They didn't wait to see what it would do next. They ran, up the stairs, out the door, into the night air. They drove, didn't speak, didn't look back. Not until they were 20 miles away did Madison finally say, "That wasn't a memory. That wasn't a hallucination." "No," Kiara whispered. "It was a visitor." They didn't sleep that night. Kiara and Madison drove to a second motel, even farther from the house, 30 miles west. Nothing but highway and gas stations in between. They didn't speak much. Both kept glancing at the rearview mirror. The motel room was bland, faded wallpaper and humming fluorescent lights, but it felt safer than the house. Barely. Madison shoved the dresser in front of the door. Kiara paced. They kept every light on. Every shadow looked too deep. By morning, Kiara's phone had 12 missed alerts. Motion detected. Hallway. Motion detected. Basement door. Camera offline. All between 2:45 and 3:09 a.m. Then silence. The last notification made her skin crawl. Connection lost. "I'm not going back alone," she said, her voice hollow. Madison nodded. "We go together." They drove back just before noon. No reason to wait. The neighborhood looked unchanged, calm. Kids rode bikes. A woman watered her flowers across the street, but the house itself felt wrong, like something inside it had exhaled, finally unburdened. Inside, the air was still, heavy. The trail cam lay on the floor, wires ripped, casing cracked. Not knocked off. Removed. In the basement, the hidden panel was still open. The chains on the chair still hung like limp arms. But the camera mount wasn't empty anymore. A new camcorder had been bolted in. Clean, sleek, modern, its red light off. Waiting. Kiara stared at it. "Who installed that?" Madison whispered. "No one has a key but me." They didn't touch it, didn't speak for several seconds. Upstairs, Kiara gathered the tapes, stuffed them in a duffel bag, and locked them in her car's trunk. Her hands were trembling. She wasn't sure if it was fear or something else, something closer to resolve. That night, she returned alone. She had to. She locked every door, latched every window, dragged the couch in front of the back exit, shut every curtain, checked the attic, every closet, every crawl space. Then she set the hallway cam back up and synced it to her laptop, and waited. She kept the crowbar beside her, her phone charged, the flashlight in her lap. 2:12 a.m. Nothing. 2:23 a.m. Silence. 2:39 a.m. The pressure shifted. The air inside the house grew heavier, thicker, like something was pressing against it. Her laptop flickered. Then came the first sound. Click. Pause. Thump. Creak. The basement door was opening. She turned toward it. Slow, inching movement, like it hated to be disturbed. On the screen, the camera feed showed nothing. Just the door, slightly ajar. Then, she heard it. Footsteps, not from the basement, from behind her, in the hallway. She turned fast, nothing. But the light overhead had dimmed, just slightly. The house was playing with her. She turned back toward the basement, and the masked figure stood in the doorway. Still, motionless, like a photograph pasted into the scene. Its presence sucked the warmth out of the room. Kiara stood, crowbar in hand. "What do you want?" she said, her voice thinner than she wanted it to be. The figure didn't move. Then it raised a hand. One finger. One. Then a second. Two. Then a third. Three. She took a shaky breath, counting. It was counting. Why? For what? She didn't wait to find out. She lunged forward, swinging the crowbar, but the doorway was empty. No footsteps, no retreating sound. The air was just still again. She ran to the stairs. Basement, empty. Chair, untouched. Camera, quiet. But it had been there. She wasn't imagining it. Back upstairs, she reviewed the hallway footage. The door never opened. The figure never appeared. No movement, no glitch. But she had seen it. It had stood right in front of her. She slammed the laptop shut and grabbed her phone. She had to call Madison. Before she could dial, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She froze, then answered. Static. Then, her voice. A recording from one of the earliest tapes. Her as a child. Daddy? Then a low voice. Her father. Stay right there, sweetheart. I'll be back in a minute. The line went dead. Kiara lowered the phone, staring at it like it had grown teeth. No one had that footage. No one had her father's voice. Except the tapes. Except the house. Except him. This wasn't about the mask. Not anymore. This was about her. It always had been. Kiara didn't leave the house the next day. She kept the doors locked, shades drawn, and phone beside her. Not because she felt safer inside, but because she was past the point of pretending escape would save her. She wasn't just in danger. She was inherited. It was never just the mask. It was never just the house. It was memory, generational. And now it was alive. She powered up the VCR again. One tape remained untouched, unlabeled. It didn't match the others. No handwriting, no timestamp, just a clean spine and dusty reel. She hadn't remembered it being there before, but now it sat on top of the stack like it had been waiting for her. She slid it in. The tape hissed. The screen flickered. Then came a familiar room, the living room of her childhood. She recognized the wallpaper, the faded green carpet, the old recliner where her mother used to sit. Except her mother wasn't in the frame. Her father was. Younger, barely 30, shirt-stained, eyes sunken. He sat on the edge of the couch with a camcorder facing him. He looked directly into the lens. "Kiara," he said, voice flat, exhausted. "If you're watching this, I'm sorry, I really am, but by now you've seen too much." She froze. He knew, even then. "You don't remember it all," he continued, "because I made sure you couldn't. But the house remembers. That's the problem." The image flickered. "When your mother died, something changed. In me? In this place? I don't know if it started with her or if it was already here, waiting." He looked off screen as if checking something, then leaned in closer. "I thought if I could trap it, give it what it needed, it would stay. It would leave you alone." His voice cracked. "I wore the mask once, just once. I thought I could control it, but it wasn't me doing those things. Not really. It just got inside me, and then it started asking for more." Kiara's skin crawled. This wasn't just guilt. This was confession. "I didn't kill those people because I wanted to," he said. "I did it because I believed it was the only way to contain it. The chair, the tapes, the rituals, I didn't invent them. I found them, hidden in the house, behind the wall. Someone was here before us." He leaned back, ran both hands through his hair. "I tried to leave. Took you with me, remember? That one year when we stayed at your aunt's in Tennessee. But it followed. Not the house. It. The pattern." He paused, then whispered. "And you saw it too, didn't you? Even as a kid. You just forgot. Or blocked it. Or maybe it let you forget." The tape crackled again. He looked back into the camera, dead-eyed now. "I tried to destroy the tapes, but they won't burn. They won't melt. They always come back. You think I didn't try?" Kiara stared in horror. He knew all of it. He knew and stayed. Because leaving hadn't helped. He took a breath deeper now. "If this tape finds you, it means I'm gone. And you're next." Silence. Then a sudden glitch. The screen twisted, bent, warped. For a moment, the image split, and another figure appeared behind her father. The mask, not worn, just floating. Behind him in the hallway, no chains, no strings. It hovered inches from his head like it was waiting. Kiara hit pause. The mask didn't blur, didn't pixelate. It was real. She grabbed her phone and snapped a photo of the screen, then hit play. Her father turned, almost sensing it, but it was gone again. He looked back at the camera. "If it comes for you," he said, "don't run. Don't film it. Don't try to figure it out. That's what it wants." His last words were almost a whisper. "It wants to be remembered. That's how it survives." The screen cut to black. No rewind, no static, just off. Kiara sat there, heart pounding, unable to breathe. The tape ejected itself slowly. Click, done. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat in silence. The truth was worse than she imagined. Her father hadn't been the killer. Not exactly. He'd been the host. And now, it was choosing again. The house creaked above her. Software barely audible. but not random. Footsteps, something moving across the upstairs hallway. She stood, grabbed her flashlight, walked to the base of the stairs. She didn't call Madison, didn't grab the crowbar. She needed to know. She climbed the steps one by one, heart pounding harder with each one. The hallway was dark, but the door to her old bedroom was open. Just a crack. Inside, she could hear breathing. Familiar, faint, then a voice, her own. As a child, "Daddy?" Kiara stepped forward, and the door creaked wider on its own. The door creaked open. Kiara stood at the threshold of her childhood bedroom. Nothing inside had changed in years. The old dresser, the peeling wallpaper, a single stuffed animal on the shelf, its fur gray with time. But the air felt wrong, heavy, like the walls were holding their breath. The voice, the one that had whispered, "Daddy," was gone now, but the weight of it lingered, echoing in her ribs. She stepped inside. The light didn't work. She tried the switch. Nothing. Only the dim spill of the hallway behind her. Shadows warped across the floor. Then she saw it. On the bed, a single VHS tape, labeled in red marker. Final. Her throat tightened. No blood, no figure, no mask in sight. Just that word. Final. She picked it up, hands shaking. The moment she did, the hallway light flickered, then cut out completely. The house went black. She backed out slowly, feeling for the walls, the railing, the edge of the stairs. Her heart thudded loud enough to drown out her breath. As she descended, she could hear something upstairs. Not walking, breathing, measured, inhuman, like it had lungs but didn't need them. She made it to the living room and shoved the tape into the VCR. It started on its own. No static, no warning, just a shot of the basement. But this time she wasn't watching a recording. The timestamp matched now, live. Kiara stared at the screen, frozen. In the footage, the basement door opened, and the masked figure stepped into frame. It stood at the foot of the stairs, holding something in its hand. A mirror, not large, just enough to reflect the camera's lens back at itself. Kiara realized what she was looking at. It wasn't just watching her, it was showing her what it saw from inside. Then the camera shifted, as if being moved, tilted, pointed, upward, toward the ceiling. The same ceiling Kiara now stood beneath. She looked up, and the masked figure was standing behind her. Real, inches away. She didn't scream. She couldn't. It raised one gloved hand and held out a second object, a tape, no label. It placed it gently on the floor between them. Then it stepped back and vanished, not running, not hiding, just gone. Like a page turning itself. Kiara dropped to her knees, picked up the second tape, and without thinking, shoved it into the VCR. This one started differently. It was filmed from a low angle, inside the wall, a hidden space. The footage showed her father, years ago, wearing the mask, not moving, just kneeling. In front of the chair, he held something in his lap. A child. Her. She couldn't have been older than 5. She was sleeping or drugged. He leaned in, whispered something into her ear, then stood. The next part was choppy, static ripping through it. Then a different scene. Kiara, older now, maybe 10, crying in the basement stairwell, the mask behind her. Not her father. It had already passed on. The figure stood over her, not attacking, not moving, just choosing. She remembered none of it. The footage was proof of something far worse than murder. It was inheritance. She hit pause. The screen froze on a frame of her younger self, eyes wide, staring directly into the lens, into now. The house creaked again. She stood up. She knew what came next. Not because she wanted it, but because there was no other path. She took the tapes, all of them, and descended into the basement. Every step down felt heavier, like gravity wanted her to stop. She passed the chair, the chains, the new camcorder still bolted to the wall. She placed the stack of tapes in front of it, one by one, then sat in the chair. Didn't strap in, didn't need to. The room accepted her. A quiet settled in, thicker than silence. She could feel it again. That presence, the pattern. It wasn't here to kill her. It was here to record her, just like the others. Kiara stared into the lens. She didn't smile, didn't cry. She just said 2 words. "I see." Then reached forward and hit record. Click.